going to try to get y'all in and out because I know all of y'all's time is precious. And we just want to formally introduce, this is Ron Garcia. He's gracious enough to come and give this information to y'all. I wanted to briefly say that if any of y'all have any questions or may not quite understand or haven't been doing this, feel free to ask questions. We are not here to catch anyone or, say that you're doing it wrong. We're here to help you. So don't feel embarrassed. Go ahead and ask questions. This is a perfect time.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? Tired? I am. But I have 2 kids, so even when I'm over here, I'm working. So I was just going to remind everyone there are some refreshments. I don't know if everyone saw them, but we have some cookies that we got, and we also have, I think, water and some juice. So feel free to get up as you please. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick intro for Mr. Ron Garcia before he steps up here. Ron Garcia prides himself in having strong West Texas roots. Having been raised in Lubbock, Texas, he received his undergraduate degree in business administration from Wayland Baptist University and his Doctor of Jurisprudence from the Texas Tech University School of Law. In addition to enjoying a deep West Texas heritage, Ron is fluent in Spanish. During law school, Ron served as a summer clerk for the United States District Court, Northern District of Texas, Lubbock Division, where he was the first recipient of the Certificate of Distinguished Service. Local community involvement has always been an important part of Ron's personal pursuits. In 2013, he was a graduate of Leadership Lubbock and was selected as one of Lubbock's top 20 under 40 professionals by the Lubbock Chamber of Commerce. Currently, he serves as executive board member of the South Plains Community Action Agency as a steering committee member of Lubbock's Chamber University. So with that being said, Mr. Ron Garcia, would you like to take the podium?
Thank you so much. So I appreciate you guys. I'm going to apologize in advance. During the new year, I was in Florida with my family, and I had an incredible time. But it's like the moment that we landed in Dallas, I got the gunk, and so something with the air pressure or the allergies, I don't know what it is, but and so I've got this. I feel great. I'm not contagious. I don't have anything like that, but I just sound horrible. So I'm really grateful for this mic because normally I can project my voice pretty well, but I'm struggling a little bit today. But like I said, I feel great and I'm glad to be here. And without further ado, we want to go ahead and get started. When the district asked me to come out here this time, they asked if I would do something a little bit different, more narrowly focused and more specific. Just as a show of hands, who in the room has come to training that I've done this before where it's called playing on the same team and it's like an hour and a half or 2 hours, and that sounds horrible with even saying that out loud. But that is and we go into a lot of detail, but it is just a big, vast, general view on a lot of different areas regarding booster clubs. And so when we came out this time, I was asked if I could, within an hour, touch on a few specific things that might be very helpful to the organizations in terms of helping them make sure that they're understanding certain things as it relates to the things that we're going to talk about today. So I put this together, and within the next, hopefully an hour or less than an hour or so, I'm just going to go over some things that the district and I thought were very important, and again, more narrowly focused in terms of the get your hands dirty, rubber meets the road, we're operating a booster club, now what? And what's it supposed to look like? What are we supposed to be doing? And are we supposed to be an organization that has bylaws, and what does that look like? Are we supposed to act like a school board and be organized with our actions and so forth and so on? And so let's get started. So again, why have this particular training? In fact, when I was asked to do these specific subjects, at first I was a little, not concerned, but my first thought was, well, I think that there's an appreciation for receiving kind of the full-fledged training, which I think, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, I think we're doing that later this year anyway, at some point, right? I don't know what the date is, but as I started thinking about these topics, I thought, you know, I'm really glad that I was asked to come do this, because not only does it help me deliver this information to you, but it will help me deliver it to other people as well. So, and like I said, it's more of this particular training, it's kind of more in the weeds of some of the issues that it's important for us to understand, okay? And now some of these may seem very basic and elementary, and if they seem that way to you because you've got everything going on properly, then man, you're gonna go have dinner and not feel sick to your stomach, right? If you're not doing any of this stuff, then you might skip dinner, you know? So let's talk about the game plan, okay? What are we not doing in here today? Again, the Booster Club basics, kind of the general stuff, the hour and a half or 2 hours, some of you guys have sat through that. That'll come again sometime this year, okay? What we're gonna talk about in here, and I'm gonna pull this off a little bit, is that okay? Am I messing up your recording, Luis? Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna pull that off just so I can move, because I'm gonna have to come over here as well anyway. So some of the things we're gonna talk about are bylaws, okay? You guys are operating a booster club, and there needs to be some rules that are clear and in writing that everyone's playing by, okay? We'll talk about bylaws. We will talk about, you know, your booster club is an organization, right? Or it should be considered an organization. And so what does it need to do to take action? You know, you guys are gonna have officers, right? You guys are gonna make decisions in terms of fundraising, spending money, and so forth. And you guys need to have some clarity and some specificity in terms of how some of that stuff needs to take place. We'll talk about organizational minutes and why those are important and how you do those. We'll talk about employer identification numbers, okay? And we're gonna discuss certain forms that you all, as nonprofits, might need to file. And you may be thinking, well, wait a second, we're not, you know, if we're organized as a booster club, we're a charitable nonprofit, we exist to support students and education and so forth, why are you talking about tax returns? Well, it's not a tax return that necessarily means that you owe taxes. It's just an informational sheet to the IRS letting them know what you're doing, that you still exist. These are your officers and directors. This is the revenues that you're making, and these are the expenses that you have. Okay, whether or not they're going to charge you, or whether or not they're going to assess and collect taxes from you, that's a whole separate thing. They're, you know, if you're a charitable nonprofit, they're not going to do that. But they've given you this incredible seal of approval that says you don't have to pay taxes, you don't have to be charged taxes when you buy stuff, and people who donate to you may be eligible to have some kind of a tax deduction. And so that's an incredible benefit, that's a big positive. So they want to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Does that make sense? And then we're also going to discuss a few bookkeeping issues. In this, you guys have a hard copy of my handout, but in this presentation, there are some links in there that I've put in your paper that you can just type out on Google and get there. But in my presentation, I actually want to go to those sites with you and kind of just show you, all right? Just show you what it looks like, how to maneuver through it. And so that's what I mean by kind of a hands-on approach. Now, you know, we won't have 5 hours together or 1 hour a day for 5 days, so we're going to be flying through this, but I think it'll give you an idea of where to go and what resources to tap into, okay? Let's talk about bylaws real quick. What are the purpose of bylaws, okay? That's the governing document of your organization, okay? It's the guide to how the actions that you guys take and the decisions that you make. When you have meetings, how you elect officers, how you remove officers, everything, okay? The purpose is to help prevent and resolve conflicts and disagreements, okay? If there's some ambiguity or there's a disagreement between two of the officers of the Booster Club as to how something should go, well, if somebody could point to the bylaws and said, this is actually how it's supposed to happen, then there's some clarity. People can say, oh, okay, yeah, my bad, I see that. Now, the cool thing about bylaws is that they belong to you guys. They're your governing documents. And so if your bylaws, this is what I tell people all the time, you know, when I'm helping people create organizations, whether it's a nonprofit or something like that, bylaws are something that, it's a living document, okay? You guys can change bylaws as y'all need to change them. If y'all are consistently doing something in the operation of your booster club, and it works, and it's legal, and it's okay, but it conflicts with what your bylaws say, change your bylaws, right? Make it consistent. That's what makes sense. The purpose is to protect the organization from potential problems, again, by clearly outlining rules and expectations. So, what are some of the things that are covered within bylaws? You don't need me to tell you this because everyone in this room knows the power of a Google search, right? Now, Google is not a lawyer, but I'm not sure that it takes a lawyer to draft bylaws, honestly. I mean, you could search for, there's actually, I don't know of any offhand by name, and I'm not certainly endorsing any, but there are programs or sites out there that'll help you build bylaws, okay? But in terms of a checklist for some of the important things, bylaws are going to include topics more vast than what you see on your handout, but some of the things that it's going to provide is, of course, the name of the organization, right, and the purpose. It's going to talk about how many directors the organization has, or how many is it starting with? How many officers, you know, does the organization have? Does it just have a president, secretary, and treasurer? Okay, or does it have vice president and second chair to the treasurer and all that? I mean, you can do all sorts of things, right? You can get as creative as you want. It's going to, your bylaws want to have a section in there regarding the election and the roles and duties and terms of your board members and your officers. Along those same lines, you know, is your bylaw, or is your booster club gonna have committees, okay? Let's say that your booster club it's growing, it's doing great things, it's got a lot of involvement. Well, the 5 or 7 directors or officers within the booster club may need some help to accomplish a certain task or a project, and you may want to be able to appoint committee members for that kind of thing, right? And so you need to have something in your bylaws regarding committee members or committees. There needs to be something in there regarding records, right? Audits. What's your fiscal year? Is your fiscal year going to coincide with the school district that you support, or is it going to be calendar year? It's going to have things regarding financial transactions, okay? It's going to discuss, or should discuss, what it takes to make changes to the bylaws. We spoke a little bit a moment ago about how if we need to change bylaws, we can do that, okay? But your bylaws should have amendment provisions that talk about how many votes does it take, or is it just by majority? Okay? Or does it require a supermajority? If it requires a supermajority, what is that percentage? Okay? So there's all sorts of things. It should have a conflict of interest policy. Okay? Sometimes, as we all know, whether it's a school board or whether it's a booster club, organizations like this people change. And so bylaws need to include provisions regarding resignations of board members, removals of board members, and what do we do with those vacancies? How do we fill those vacancies? Is it just kind of like a school board? Is it just, could we do it by appointment, or do we have to hold some kind of little election within the booster club, or vote on it, or how does that work? Dissolution of the organization, okay? Nobody wants to think about their organization being no more, okay? That's what that means, dissolution, dissolving, or nobody wants to think about that. But you do have to think about that in terms of having those provisions in your bylaws, because if something does happen, people need to know how to move forward with that, okay? And then there's all sorts of other, like I said, all sorts of other provisions that could be there. Also, you may have friends or colleagues within the school district of another booster club that would be happy and willing to share, this is what we have as bylaws. And then, I'm not necessarily saying that that's going to happen, but like I said, you shouldn't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. Does that make sense? As far as creating and implementing bylaws. But as far as having to have them, you need to have them, okay, as your governing document to your organization. Okay. So how does the booster club, is everyone in here are we talking specifically booster clubs, or is there other parent-teacher organizations besides booster? Is it all booster clubs? Okay, great, okay. Because I want it to be inclusive. I don't want to just keep saying booster clubs, but, okay. So how do we accomplish things within our organization? Well, hopefully we could look at the bylaws and it gives us specifics as to what we need to do, okay? But some of the things that we need to think about as far as, how we accomplish organizational action is, well, we have to have meetings, right? We have to be able to get on the same page, or discuss things and arrive to, whether it's a vote or by consensus or something. But there has to be, and again, some of this stuff is going to be spelled out in your bylaws in terms of where do we meet? How frequently do we meet? Do we have a monthly meeting? Do we have an annual meeting? And then just meet whenever we need to. How do we treat regular meetings versus special? Now again, we don't want to get overly complicated. I'm not going to pretend to, I am not saying, for those of you who are familiar with how a school board has to do meetings, you guys are not the school board. Y'all are not bound to the same, the Texas the Open Meetings Act, where you have to post things 72 hours in advance and things of that nature. Now, you do want to communicate when you're having meetings, but you guys are not the school district, right? Y'all are, or y'all should be, hypothetically, or theoretically, a private, nonprofit organization that exists to support the schools, okay? What constitutes a quorum? Okay, you guys need to be able to define how many people do we need for it to be a quorum? And you may be thinking, well, Ron, a quorum is just going to be the majority of the directors that exist. Excuse me. That's not always the case. People can define quorums differently, okay? And so now that's probably the most common way to define a quorum. If you've got 7 officers, okay, then and a majority of those constitutes a quorum, how many do you need for a quorum? 4, yeah. Same thing with whether it's, however many, if it's 9, you need 5, if it's so forth and so on. So are we going to be able to have actions by consent? Okay. When we are, and again, my objective is not to overcomplicate the process that you guys are going through to have meetings and take action. But one of the things that you guys might become familiar with are the parliamentary procedures for meetings, okay? And the kind of the end-all be-all of those is called the Robert's Rules of Order. Anyone ever heard of that? The Robert's Rules of Order? Okay. So basically, I mean, even school boards, okay, tend to follow Robert's Rules. And what those are, let me show you. So see, these give you, Robert's Rules of Order is a standard for facilitating discussions and group decision-making, okay? And so it goes over, this is kind of a cheat sheet, okay? But it goes over how do we make a motion? What do we need to make a motion to do something, right? If you've been on a school board or any kind of organization where that type of thing is required, then you're going to be familiar with that. And, do you need to table something within that discussion to next time you meet? And so, anyhow, it just gives you some tips to conduct a meeting in an organized fashion where it's not just chaos. Okay, now I'm not implying or suggesting that you guys have a problem with chaotic booster club or PTO meetings whatsoever. I have no idea. But if you want some structure to those meetings, to following the Robert's Rules is just something most organizations do, whether it's a private, for-profit corporation or a nonprofit organization or a school district or whatever it is. They're just rules that help organize and keep the facilitation of a meeting how it needs to be, right? In terms of on task and concise and not chaotic. Any questions about that? I used to, when I first got out of law school, this is a great illustration on how organizations should not operate. Okay, when you get out of law school, everyone wants, and we're going to talk about this here in a minute, everyone wants accountants and lawyers and teachers and professionals on their boards, right? So I got out of law school. I don't even remember how I got connected with this particular organization. I had just started practicing law with Underwood, and I got on this organization. It was really small and not very organized, and I could tell right away, I don't know. I mean, I agree with the heart of the purpose of this, what this organization is trying to do. They're just super disorganized and chaotic. And I remember going to a meeting where the president was having a discussion about something and about a decision in terms of an organization going forward to offer trainings or whatever that we were going to do. And I made a comment and I said, well, wait a second. I'm not sure that A, B, and C has been made official. You know what I mean? In terms of, this is what our organization wants to do. And his comment was, okay, it's official now. So I was like, and I mean, does that make sense? Is the point is, that's called a dictatorship that wants resources of people around them. That's not an organization. So when you guys are doing stuff, remember that example, okay? When your officers or fellow officers or yourself say, here's what we're gonna do, and that's all there is to it, it's official. Remember my little story where probably not the most effective way to run a booster club or a PTO, okay? Okay, let's talk real quick about minutes. I want to ask a question with a show of hands, but I don't want to cause your show of hands to expose you. So I'm going to ask a rhetorical question. Just raise your hand within your heart, okay? Don't do it. Don't do this. But here's what don't raise your hand. How many of you have and operate or help operate a booster club or a PTO and don't keep minutes or records of what you're doing in your meetings? Don't raise your hands, okay? For the love of God, don't do it. Because how does anybody know what happened last month or last year, you know? And that may seem like such a silly question, but it might be that, I mean, you know, we get together and we're all honest and we all have integrity and we talk about things and we make a decision and we move forward and everyone stays honest and everyone operates with integrity and everything happens and the fundraiser happens and the instruments are purchased and the kids are good and everything's great. Yes, but again, when somebody needs, even if it's just ourselves, right, as officers of the PTO Booster Club, when somebody needs to find out, wait, when did we do this? Well, we think it had to have been in early December, because I know it was right after Thanksgiving, okay? And you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but it's important, okay? Nonprofit meeting minutes are a necessary form of record keeping for all nonprofit organizations. It doesn't matter if you're the biggest nonprofit in the United States or, one of the many local PTOs or booster clubs of the school. You have to keep track. They serve as your official and legal record of what you guys are doing or not doing, right? Let's say y'all have a plan to go to a meeting tonight to make a decision about whether or not you're going to do A, B, or C. Well, if you decided not to do that, it'd be great for there to be a record that action didn't pass. If you decided to table it until next time, it'd be great to know that decision was tabled and that it's going to be picked up next month or next quarter, whenever y'all meet. Or if you decided to take action to approve A, B, or C, am I making sense? Yeah? Okay. We want them to be clear, concise, and accurate, and accurately reflect the action taken. They don't. I know some of you in here, okay? I just know you. There are some of you that you're kind of born as a scribe. And you want to we want to write a novel. When I say you have to document the things that we did, you start thinking in terms of chapters, right? Don't do that. Look at, it's public information. I mean, you could ask somebody or you could go on, Plainview ISD school board minutes. Look at how they do their minutes, okay? It's very concise, very clear, and it reflects what happened. There doesn't need to be commentary and, you know, although I voted against this because it was the stupidest decision ever, it passed because the other 5 yahoos voted on it. And you know what I mean? We don't want, that doesn't need to be in there. And so, clear, concise, and it accurately reflects the action taken. Okay, let's see. And, you know, if you've ever been at a school board meeting, you'll notice how at the beginning of the meeting, one of the first things that they do is to take action approving the minutes, okay? And the reason that they do that is because if there's something that needs to be corrected in terms of what happened last time, they're able to do that right before the minutes become finalized and official. And again, what I don't want you to hear me say is, you know, you guys have to, you know, you have to be overly complicated with what you're doing. You want there to be records. You want them to be accurate, and you want them to reflect what's happening. And so, hopefully, those tips can help. And like I said, I think you could just look at a copy of minutes, whether it's a school board or, you know, maybe you have, again, a really, really good dear friend on the other booster club that's just doing an incredible job, and they can let you look at the minutes of their booster club meetings. But if not, these are the, you know, at the very least, some examples of some things that should be within your minutes of your booster club or your PTO meetings. The date and time, right? You might have in there, you know, this is a regular meeting, and like I said, I don't know if you meet quarterly, monthly, twice a semester, or whatever it might be. Sometimes you might have to do a special meeting, an annual meeting. You want to have named in there the directors or the officers in attendance, and probably even any guests, because it may not be normal for you to have guests in attendance, right? But guess what? Even though this might not happen, and I say this all the time, this may not happen because they have 5,000 other things going on in a day, but your central superintendent has a legal authority and a right to show up at any booster club meeting. And if the superintendent's there, and I'm running that booster club meeting, that's a pretty important thing. I'm probably gonna indicate on there, hey, on January 10th, 2023, we had a meeting and we were visited by the superintendent, right? You want to indicate whether a quorum was present, and then again, the action taken. If you look at board meeting minutes from a school district, they're going to have, again, it's going to be concise, but they're going to have a little bit of detail in terms of the action, right? How did the votes go? Who voted yay? Who voted nay? Who abstained, meaning somebody said, I can't vote on this, so I'm going to not vote and abstain. That's what abstention means, okay? And so those types of little details, again, I think are important to reflecting what took place at one of y'all's meetings, all right? Okay. Let's talk employee identification numbers. If you're not sure what an employer identification number is, that might mean you don't have one, okay? And you need one, okay? An EIN number is essentially like mine and your social security numbers, right? It's an identifier to that specific organization, okay? So we've heard the term tax identification number, right? It's kind of the same thing. It's like a social security number for your nonprofit or for your organization, okay? When I help people create nonprofits or LLCs or, the for-profit LLCs, every one of those needs an EIN number, okay? Now, there are, some entities that are called sole proprietorships, they can operate under an individual social security number. As a lawyer anyway, I always discourage that because that's going to be tied to somebody's social, and as a booster club, you certainly don't want something tied to your personal social security number. So in my opinion, this isn't legal advice, but in my opinion, there shouldn't be a booster club that's operating as a sole proprietorship under an individual's social security number, okay? Every booster club or PTO should need their own EIN number, okay? They should not be utilizing anyone else's EIN number, whether it's the school district or some other organization. That's not how that works. That's not proper or legal. That would be like me borrowing your social security number to do XYZ, okay? And so every organization needs its own EIN number, okay? As I mentioned before, an EIN can be applied for by various types of entities, including sole proprietorships or nonprofit organizations. Now, has anyone in here ever applied for an EIN number? Yeah, okay, so I'm going to show you real quick. So the form, IRS has form numbers for everything, right? So if you are wanting or needing to apply for an EIN number for your booster club, this is the form, this is the EIN or the SS4 form, which is an application for an EIN. You'll see it's just a one-pager. It's got a little bit of information there, but you just fill it out, and now it takes a little bit of help, because of the specifics on all of these spaces here, but this is the hard copy form that I used to fill out all the time and then fax to the IRS and then call them and say, hey, I just faxed you an EIN number, can you help me process one? And I'd wait on the phone for 70 minutes and then they'd get on and accidentally hang up on me. And so not the way I preferred to do it, okay? There's also, real quick, we're gonna look at the online version of it, but there's also some instructions for how you're supposed to fill that out and what all those spaces mean, okay? Let's see here. And I think these documents here, all of these instructions, I believe are available in Spanish. I didn't include them in this deal, but I believe that they are. Now, I'm gonna show you, oops. Okay, so the way that I currently help clients apply for EINs is I just do it online, because it's much easier, and you obtain the EIN instantly, and you don't have to call the IRS and waste an hour of your life waiting on the phone. Okay, and so when you go to this site, this is the page that you're going to see. Okay, so well, maybe this is the page that you're going to see, but see, this is an IRS page, and it's going to help if you have questions. Do I need an EIN? Do I need a new one? What is a responsible party on the EIN number? And so there's a lot of information there that's going to somewhat be helpful to you. But then when you decide, okay, I know that I need one, I've got all the information that I would otherwise put on that form, so now I need to apply for one. So then you go, you click on apply, and then you're going to go to that page that I had on this right up there, and then you're just going to begin the application process. Okay, so you're here, and you're going to do let me see here. So yeah, so let's say that you're going to do additional types, including tax exempt. So here you would do other nonprofit tax exempt organization, right? And then you confirm your selection of other nonprofit. That's, I mean, if you're a booster club, if you're a charitable organization that's just there to support the public and the school, that's going to be generally what it is. So then you would go to continue, and if you're just starting one to have an EIN number for your booster club, you're either clicking on starting a new business or for banking purposes or something like that, and then you just start filling it in, right? You start filling it in terms of who's the responsible party, somebody's social security number, and I always tell clients this, an individual social security number is going to be tied to, or is going to have to be put on there when you apply for the EIN number, okay? And so we can't go any further without putting this in there. But again, I just kind of wanted to show you how that worked, okay? When you get through the process of filling out that online form, you're going to have a page that says this, okay? Congratulations, your EIN number has been successfully assigned, and it's going to have the EIN number, and it's going to have the legal name of your entity. In that case, that's a real client, so I redacted, and there was an LLC that I helped somebody create. And so it's going to have your name and your EIN number, and then you're also going to receive from the IRS this notice CP 575, okay? And this is also going to have, it's going to be addressed to the entity. It's going to have the EIN number here, and all those things you just keep for your entity, for your booster club or PTO's record, right? You maintain that with the records of the organization. And then as you proceed, you're going to see this page, which shows you, what can I do now that I have an EIN number? Okay, well, you can start opening bank accounts, or you're going to need that EIN number to file a tax return, which we're about to talk about, okay? Now, again, without exposing yourself, I don't know, I'm hoping that this information is kind of hands-on helpful to, you may be helping operate a booster club or getting one started where you guys are starting from the ground up, okay? And that's okay. Everything starts right that way. And so hopefully this helps guide you guys in terms of knowing, number one, you've got to be an organized organization, and then you need to apply for an EIN number, because the only reason that a booster club exists is to do what? Or PTO exists is to do what? To, boost something, right? To support something. And that support and that help generally means dollars, revenue, funds. We're helping them go to a band concert in New York. We're helping them do this or purchase this or have access to things that they wouldn't otherwise have access to because the school district's not able to to expend funds for those things. And so that's the purpose of this. So you can't, I'd be interested to hear a good argument. I don't know that I would, where somebody's saying, hey, you know what, we're a booster club, but I don't think we need an EIN number, okay? What are you doing? What are you doing if it's not something to do with raising revenue and using that revenue to support something, okay? So, all right, so let's talk real quick, because we only have a few minutes. Let's talk about tax returns, okay? You're operating, you've got an EIN number, you're fundraising, you got officers, you're doing what you're supposed to do, and then now you have to let the IRS know what you're doing, okay? And again, you know, where you would file personally, right, a 1023 or whatever, you know, whatever document you need to file for your personal taxes, as the tax-exempt booster club or PTO, you're filing another type of annual information notice with the IRS, okay? And it's called a Form 990, okay? There are, depending on the level that your organization's at in terms of revenues and value, there's different types of 990s that they can file. The full-fledged form is just a Form 990, and then you have Form 990EZ, and you have the e-postcard, which is called the Form 990N. Now, we're going to look at those here in a moment, but I wanted to point you, we're going to look at the thresholds to those different forms and which one you could do, and they get easier as, you know, as they go on. After the EZ, the postcard is going to be easier than the Form 990. But I wanted to point you to this resource and tools page that will help you. You know, again, I'm trying to teach you, what I'm trying to do here is not give you a fish, but teach you how to fish, right? It's because that way, you know, when you have questions about these things, we know how to get to those resources. Okay, and so see here, filing thresholds, you can just click on that, and there it just tells you. See that?
We can't see on that one.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Wait, has this not been up here the whole time? Any time that I've been on a website? Okay, I'm going to go back to the very beginning of the presentation. Just kidding. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I'm sitting here maneuvering through things and thinking, man, this is so helpful that they're looking at this, and y'all are like staring at something that I'm not doing. Y'all are too nice. You're supposed to throw something at me and say, hey man, we don't see what you're doing. I'm so sorry. I thought that this was coming up. Well, it's coming up on my screen, I guess, but not y'all's. So, I'm so sorry. Well, okay, so these are the thresholds. Here's the thing. I'm even more grateful now that I had the links on there for you, because you can go to them and, do you know how to do that?
Figure it out.
Okay,
Real quick.
yeah.
I wonder if you're gonna have to be in this mode to show it. Yeah, you're gonna have to be out of the PowerPoint,
Okay, that's fine.
so we can just. Well, it's a little bit too close. Yeah, you're probably just gonna have to do that.
Okay. So this means I'm going to have to start over again. All right, why are we having this training? I'm just kidding. Okay, so what I was on, okay, when I clicked on this, this is the website that came up. Look, these are just so you'll know, I really was showing you stuff, or meaning to. This is where I was, gosh, y'all didn't see any of this. I was clicking on things and oh my God. Okay. Anyway. Okay, let's see. All right, so I'm going to go back real quick just because, so one of those sites or one of those links takes you to this page, okay, to apply for an EIN online. So that's where you click begin. And then see, here's where I said, you know, you could click on other tax exempt, go to other. See? Continue. And so, you know, this is how you do it online. Now, we're not going to go through one because you have to fill all that out. Here's where I was talking about how the person actually requesting the EIN has to put their social security number down. You know, it's just, I guess the government wants to know that a real life human is requesting this. But this was the other one that I was referring to in terms of the tools and helpful resources for the 990s. And so like I was saying here, you could just click on thresholds and it just tells you what it is. It'll take you to each of the forms, each of the instructions, the user guide for the 990N. And so, again, I think pretty helpful tools. So just real quick, so we're going to go to the bottom first. So if the organization normally has gross receipts of $50,000 or less, if you're doing more than that, fabulous, right? You got to do one of these other 990s. Now, but if your gross receipts are $50,000 or less, then you can choose to do the e-postcard, the 990N, okay? And let me see. Yeah, so let me do this. So this is just this particular page has, again, some links. It's not doing it. How'd you do that? Escape? There we go. Thank you. Okay. So, you guys are going to be like, man, this guy may know something about this stuff, but he doesn't have a clue about PowerPoint. And I promise I do. There you go. All right, so if Form 990N is your thing, if that's what your organization needs to do, then you can go to this page, obtain some more information, and then submit it from this website, okay? This also has, we already saw that, the user guide that'll help you. It'll walk you through exactly how to file that e-postcard on there. And then yeah, let's see. Any questions about that, about the 990? Here's something really important that we need to know about the 990, okay? If we fail to file it 3 consecutive years and your organization has tax-exempt status, you will lose your tax-exempt status. I promise you it's real, it'll happen. A long, long time ago, in a school district in another galaxy far, far away, I helped this school form an education foundation. We went through everything from the ground up. We created the entity with the Secretary of State. We've got the EIN. We filed the forms for application for federal tax-exempt status, state tax-exempt status. They were up and running, doing great things. And the person who would receive the notices indicating, hey, you need to do your 990, they just ignored it for 3 years. And then they got a notice saying, you're no longer tax exempt. And so then they call me and say, uh-oh, Ron, we screwed up. We didn't file this thing and we're no longer tax exempt. What do we do? And my response was, you remember everything we did 3 years ago? We got to do that all over. And so that's what we did, because it was this organization that was receiving funds from all these entities, and they're doing great things and giving students scholarships and all this stuff, they couldn't just let themselves stay without tax-exempt status. So they had to apply for it. We had to go through that process again, and a reapplication process is what it's called, and then we obtained it. And then guess what happened 3 years later? I'm not kidding. They failed to do that again, and they lost it again. So, it's real, and so don't let that happen. No, not necessarily, but interestingly, though, I think that they felt too embarrassed to ask me to help them do it again, so I don't know what they did with it. So, okay. Yes, please.
And you can see that. You can search on IRS, so it's not a secret. So if you've lost your EIN.
Yes, yep.
We do know.
Mm-hmm.
So please apply again and come and sit by us and we'll help you through it. No shame, no embarrassment, we'll help you through it. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. That's a
I just had one thing too, because
Sure.
been in the business, I was 20 years. Please do not use the school district's EIN number for any of your PTO or Booster Club tax exempt purchases. I've seen it multiple times, our EIN on blah, blah, blah Booster Club. And so please use your own EIN, do not use the district, you can really get us both in trouble. So we've seen it
right.
actually come through a couple times.
Exactly. And that's why we felt that it was important to include all those steps on here and all those resources as to how do you get your own. Well, this is how you get your own, okay? Because you're right. I mean, it's not proper. It's not lawful that you just like it's not lawful if I stick your social security number in my stuff because I'd rather you pay my taxes than me or something like that. It's not. It's the same thing. Okay, real quick, we've got just a few minutes to talk about some other. Yes, sir.
Quickly before you go, is your EIN number your tax exempt number? Or are those separate?
Well, no, those are not the. So you don't. So your tax exempt. Okay, I'm trying to understand your question. So when you request an EIN number before you request tax exempt status, and so when you obtain your tax exempt status, you have the same EIN number. Yes. Is that your question?
But that's not the form, that's not what you fill out if you're trying to get sales tax exempt. On the form, it's a 11 number.
So now you're talking about a state filing number, your Texas tax ID number. That tax ID number through the state of Texas is different than a federal EIN number. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah.
It has one extra digit on it. It's a
Yeah.
state number with one extra digit.
Yeah. So, no, good question though. Okay, let's talk about another couple, because I only have like 2 minutes is what that little bell indicated. So there's 100 bookkeeping issues that we could talk about, but one of the things, I just wanted to kind of give you guys some bullet points in terms of what are we talking about when we talk about bookkeeping and other issues? Well, we're talking about things like properly creating a budget, excuse me, preparing to be able to present reports, financial reports, right? Your principals, your superintendent should at any time be able to go to you and say, hey, man, your booster club's doing great things and blah, 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 but we'd like to see what's going on. And so you should be able to have financial reports. Tracking purchases, expenses, and revenues, okay? Keeping track of money going in and out. I mean, that's essentially what it boils down to. Reconciling bank accounts. If your booster club or PTO is integrating some type of online or mobile platform to take payments or to sell shirts or to sell whatever, like PayPal or Venmo or whatever you guys use, we have to be able to integrate that with our bookkeeping, okay? Accepting online payments, managing booster club member payments and expenses, and things of that nature. So, excuse me, I'm talking a lot. So what responsibilities, in terms of bookkeeping, what responsibilities do officers have? Well, see your bylaws, right? They should indicate that. I mean, is it the treasurer and the secretary that are responsible for those things, or are all the officers have some responsibility? Again, with the power of Google searches, you guys, I mean, I typed this the other day, and I was amazed by how many sites came up. Now, again, I'm not endorsing any of those. I've not worked with any of those. I don't know how well they operate. All I know is that there are online Booster Club accounting programs that are created to help you guys manage your Booster Club bookkeeping, okay? And so it might be worth looking into some of those, doing some research, and seeing if implementing that into your Booster Club might be a helpful, positive thing. It may not be, but, you know. The other thing, and I referenced this a little while ago, right, where, man, one of the best things you can do, and I'm really not kidding, you know, is to recruit some school-supporting, kid-loving, time-generous accountant or CPA or something to your Booster Club, because they're going to be very helpful, right? You know, I've learned very quickly and very skillfully how to say no, right? Because everyone wants me on their board because I'm a lawyer or accountant or whatever. I mean, if you're a professional, people want you to help their organizations with whatever your skill set is. And so be those people and find those accountants to help you with your Booster Club, right? I don't know, you know, if that's possible, but I know that there's been a few times that I've helped the school district create an education foundation, and on like 2 or 3 occasions, one of the directors that we created it with was an accountant or a CPA, and so they added a lot of value to how they operated because this is, I mean, at least at the level of a Booster Club or PTO, nobody's getting paid, right? So I mean, it's a voluntary deal, right? And so just, you know, looking for good people to be a part of your organization that are going to be able to attach to the vision and passion of what you guys are trying to do, that's going to be helpful. The other issue that we don't have time to talk about, thank God, is just as a reminder. Now, we do get into more detail about this in case you're wondering, in case you're thinking, crap, that's what I wanted to talk about, was UIL stuff and Booster Clubs. Well, you can go to these links and read stuff all night long, or you can come back whenever we have that full-fledged presentation, because we spend a lot of time speaking about Booster Clubs and UIL guidelines. I just wanted to take the time on this last slide to just remind you guys, yeah, remember that those things are there. And so when you guys are organizing and deciding what you want to, you know, what you're trying to do in terms of doing stuff for students or athletes or coaches or whatever, there's all these rules hovering over our heads, right? And we have to make sure we comply with all of them. And so we don't have much time for questions, but are there any? You guys have asked some good questions throughout. Any questions, concerns? Sure.
Most of our fundraising is it comes through donations. So when you're sending a form to them, to that person, individual, or to that company for their donation to your booster, what would be some of the primary basics that need to be on that document for them to use for their tax?
That's a really, really good question. I think it could be very simple and concise. You know, so-and-so, thank you so much for your donation or contribution of $1,000 to the blank Booster Club. And you know, if you're tax exempt 501c3, you want to put that in there, just because they're gonna want to see that, their accountant's gonna want to see that, and so. But it doesn't have to be very lengthy just really concise.
At the very bottom, like in a footer, I have the 501c3.
Right.
All that.
Perfect. No, I bet it's good to go. Good question. Any others?
I do recommend, if you're not using duplicate checks, use duplicate checks for your organization, because a lot of times if you forget something, you go back and say, oh, there's that. I just, because I've done golf for, I don't know, forever. I just take 1 year at the end of the financial year and put it in like in a folder with Brad's of every receipt from that year with that final financial report for that year. And just write on the outside what year it is.
Yeah.
And then start over in my binder for that next year. But duplicate checks help a lot, and make sure your coaches or whatever gets you, if they're spending something, you have those receipts in hand. And print off, at the very end of filing your 990, print off the submission has been turned in or.
Yeah, processed, yep.
So that way, if you ever sit there and go, oh my gosh, did I forget, did I do that? Every year I have to go, did I do that? And then you go back and you will have it documented that, yes, you have turned that in. But you can also look that up online.
Yeah. That's great. Great tips. I wish you could talk another 10 minutes. Any,
Graduating this year.
yay.
Presenter at the next one.
There you go. I'll pull you up here. Now, that's really good information. That's really, I love the hands-on, hey, here's what we're doing. Maybe it could be helpful to you. What else?
What about voting through text, or let's say COVID hit, or emergency purchases, or
Yeah.
something like that? Does it have to be in the bylaws that you need to do that?
Well, I think in hindsight, we might say, yeah, it would have been helpful to have that in the bylaws. You know, that's a really good question. When COVID hit, you know, it was obviously, you know, unless you lived through the, you know, 1918 Black Plague or whatever, this was something that none of us had dealt with, especially in our current technology age. And so when the governor of not just the state of Texas, but various states had to suspend their laws on open meetings and everything else, that showed us how behind the times a lot of those laws are, but it showed us how, you know, when you have to get business done, sometimes the way that those rules are written don't really make sense. Now, I'm not disparaging the laws, they are what they are and we have to deal with them. But again, your booster clubs are not local government entity. They're not the school district. And so, yes, you guys could vote by email or whatever, text or whatever you guys determine is okay, okay? And so, yeah, good question.
We've used Sports U on quite a few different things, because it just targets that very specific group.
Yeah,
They just vote yes or no.
yeah, great. What else?
I will say you hit a question I've had all year.
Okay.
So everything you presented, someone has had a question on. So
Good.
I do appreciate
Well,
that.
sure. And, you know, I don't want to pretend like the content of my presentation has all the answers, but again, what I wish to do within this hour is to give y'all some resources, and here's where you can go, you know, because if you don't know, you know, that there's an issue that there's an issue there, you don't know how to deal with the issue, right? It's all about spotting the issue and knowing, man, I don't even know what an EIN number is, much less filed any for our booster club. And you so happen to be the treasurer or secretary, right? And so I mean, and like you said, this is not to make anybody feel bad or shame anybody. I mean, I really commend this district and a handful of other. I wish somebody should be speaking about these things at every school district in Texas. I don't think it's happening, but that's why I commend your leadership and other school districts that have us do this as well, because I think it's so important. I mean, we're all, you know, kind of like my other presentation says, we're all playing on the same team. We all want to accomplish, our goal is kids. You do what you do, I do what I do, because of kids. And so that's what we're here to do. So if there's no other questions, man, I appreciate you guys. Do you have anything else?
I was just going to close it out.
Okay.
Just thank you for joining us today and sharing that information. Can we give them a round of applause? I was just going to sort of reiterate, I think for me, being that I worked in accounting and tax, I would say that piece is very important. Try to find an accountant that does this, and you'll find that will be very helpful and will probably take a large portion of that load off of y'all's shoulders, because I know it can be daunting to go into these websites even sometimes and you see and you're like, oh, well, I know he said that, but it still can be a little scary. So find you a good CPA. And then other than that, if you have any questions, oh, and if there's anyone in here who needs, information in Spanish, I will be here after if you want to speak with me. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us at the business office. We'd be glad to help. And there's stuff left over, so if you want a cookie, you want something to drink, feel free to grab it on your way out. Thank you guys for joining us.